Alright, actually live now. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody back to another daily. This time we even have audio. That's crazy. If you're watching these in the playlist, I assume you skipped over the previous one because there was only audio for about 15 minutes of it. Or at least only mic audio. Alright. So, I do actually kind of have a planned agenda today. I was thinking about it while the stream was kicking up. I was getting everything ready. I think what I want to do is... let's, do some proper camera work, I think. So I want to take a look at some other, just some actual Metroidvanias that are out there, and kind of inspect what their camera movement looks like, how it behaves in certain scenarios, and figure out what should be good standards for implementing the same thing in my own game. And just because something is I think this is pretty important to note when you're doing any kind of really artistic endeavors in general, but I mean, yeah, more specifically for game design. Just because you see that something is a standard across the board, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to implement it the same, and doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best implementation, right? If that was the case, then games would never get better. They would never improve. And I'm not so naive as to think that the 2D platformer genre is already at its peak. I don't believe that's true. So the question is, what games are we going to be taking a look at today to inspect their camera movement? Now, we technically already did a little bit of this quite a while ago, probably 20 dailies ago or something. I took a really brief look at Hollow Knight, and I think we're going to start with Hollow Knight again today. So I'm going to boot that up, just because that's the one that I have already ready to go in terms of my layout. Okay, so we're getting Hollow Knight booted up, and I can probably swap which of these scenes will be good. This one? Oh, probably not that one. Alright, I think I have to wait a little longer for it to boot, because currently we're sitting in a loading screen. I guess I'll use my bingo scene. For lack of a better scene to use right now. I mean, we could just use the GDD scene. Yeah, let's just use this scene and I'll drag it in. So let me add game capture, add existing Hollow Knight, boom. And then hopefully it shows. There it is. Now we do have some audio. It's gonna be a little weird because the audio is gonna clash, but that's fine. Alright, so one thing we can immediately note, right, as soon as we load into Hollow Knight, we can see that our player character is in the bottom quarter of the screen, quite low to the bottom, yeah? The camera by default centers quite above the player. Now, if I, as the player, were to jump here, alright, if I just do small jumps like this, we see the camera doesn't move at all. And in fact, I believe in this location specifically, the camera is at a fixed Y position. So we can go as high as we want, it doesn't make a difference, the camera will not move. The camera does, however, move on the x-axis, and one thing I'm immediately noting is that the camera is a little delayed And also it tilts a little bit based on which direction you're facing. That's another interesting note. If I tap right here, we see the camera pans a bit to the right, so our player is no longer centered on the screen, actually. So here my player is centered. If I look left, I'm not centered anymore. Or if I look right. When I sit at the bench, oh, it doesn't quite center it. Okay, but regardless, we can see we're not actually right in the middle. So that's interesting. It looks like when we start moving, the camera doesn't actually start panning doesn't start panning left or right until we reach the center of the screen. So because the camera is kind of panned a little bit to the right, the player has to walk probably about one player's length to get to the middle, and it's only at that point that the camera starts to move. It like snaps and locks on the player. So I imagine right now the camera is centered and locked on the player in the x-axis, on the x-axis. And then when I stop, it's going to push forward a bit. So it looks like it kind of like stops after the player. It's not actually stopping after the player. It's just that when the player's at rest, the camera centers a bit in the direction that the knight is facing. That's actually what's going on here. So let's go to an area now where we have a bit of vertical movement. So I'm going to go to Kings. Okay, interesting to note here. We have a locked camera perspective at this specific point. So when the player enters this particular area, the camera locks. Now when I move out, there's this point right here where it's no longer a locked... Oh, okay, it looks like it's only locked on the y-axis here. It's just that we're at the edge of the screen, so it stops here, right? Another thing to note that for transitions in Hollow Knight, it is just black border edge. Oh wait, no, that's not the case. It's just because I'm widescreen. What am I talking about? Okay, ignore me. Like, look over at the OBS display and I'm like, wait a minute, there's no black border there. Okay, but we're currently locked in the Y, and there's a little bit here where I can kind of move the X, so we can see even here where the X is locked, where the X is moving a little bit. It only happens when I jump up because the ceiling's kind of pushing me left a little bit because it's slanted. But as soon as we get to this point, the camera is no longer locked on us, and I want to say that the knight is a little below the center of the camera on the y-axis. It's a little below. Now, yeah, like we are not in the center of the screen. It is definitely a little below. If we jump, I think it does the same thing. Oh, it kind of even does it a little slower. It plays, it's like, it's very subtle. It's hard to tell. So we jump, and the camera kind of plays like a slow catch-up, right? It's really hard for me to gauge. It's like a really gradual easing. I think it's to help, like, imagine, like, we already know that in kind of the game that I've got set up at the moment where the camera follows the player exactly. Imagine if you're doing like this wings jump, right? Where you're like swiftly, you kind of dips down before shooting the player upwards. That with like a fixed camera would look so jarring. It'd be like up and down and up and down. Like it'd look atrocious. Whereas with this kind of like camera easing on the vertical axis, it doesn't look nearly as bad. It's kind of when you're wingsing, it kind of like halts the Y movement. So it still does stop the camera, but it's not like crazy. Now when I'm falling down, I don't know if I'm gonna put my finger on the screen. I don't think you really, no, yeah, the position's the exact same when you fall. Okay, that's interesting. But definitely when you're jumping, it's not. I'm gonna use my finger again. Yeah, I kind of jump over. It's kind of the same way the facing direction thing works. And you like walk into it and then it follows you. Which is interesting. It's a really cool and subtle camera effect. And I don't know if we're gonna see it when we look at some other games that we're gonna inspect today. I'm probably just gonna go over a few. So I've started with Hollow Knight. The next one I want to pull up is Super Metroid, I think. So a much older game. Who knows if I have any save states? Probably don't. Yeah, I don't. We can probably, even in the opening area, it's probably fine. Let me just add this. I'm gonna have to make a new one for it. Specific window, I want this one. Ooh, there we go. Okay, so taking a look at Super Metroid now. I guess I'll center the game. Pull it down here. Change it. I'm gonna move it up the top. Okay, I pressed the wrong button. Go me. So taking a really brief look at Super Metroid and how this plays out. I haven't played Super Metroid in so long. I really should play it. I need to do some more Super Metroid randomizer. There was a period of time where I was just playing Super Metroid Link to the Past Cross Randomizer. That is like one of the coolest mods that anyone's ever made. It's super sick. And I should probably do some more attempts of that. By the way, okay, hold on. I'm going to turn off the lo-fi for a second because this is one of my favorite tracks. Just probably in video games, period. I love the opening soundtrack to Super Metroid. It's so good. It's, oh my god. I should turn it up. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. It's so good. I could spend an entire stream just raving about this game. Like, holy shit. This is like, I mean, it's definitely like, it's easily in my top 5 favorite games of all time. I think it takes #1 Metroid game for me as well. It's like this and then Metroid Prime, the first. Played the remaster recently. The remaster's really good. Highly recommend picking that up if you've got a Switch and want like a fun adventure game to play. But Super Metroid is just an absolute classic. Like, this is like peak. I mean, you know, one of the games that defined the genre entirely. Like, you know, now there is an entire genre of games that are based on this game, based off of this game, and like, okay, I gotta like remember what the buttons are. Okay. So, first room, right? We have a locked X axis, a locked X position of the camera. It's not gonna scroll left or right at all. It does scroll up and down. So we can see that as we fall down the platform, the position of our player, or the camera is actually quite different compared to Hollow Knight. So let me go all the way back to the top, right? So at this point, we have a locked Y position. And as I fall down, it kind of moved me down a bit. And as I fall down, my Y position doesn't change at all in the slightest. And we have quite a lot of space to see downwards as well. So the way that Super Metroid handles it, at the very least in this room, because I can't, you know, when we're going to be looking at all these games, I can't speak to every single... They might do different camera behaviors in different rooms, right? But at the very least, in like the opening room to Super Metroid, if you want to move up, the camera's going to scroll down so that you have a lot more vision above you, right? I'm moving upwards, I can see above me. Now, as I hit the top, it's scrolled down. Well, it hasn't scrolled down a bit, it's just hit the top. And now when I fall back down, I'm going to have a lot more vision below me, right? Like, it's below the player now. The camera's kind of centered, like, on the player's feet as we drop down. And then as we go back up, the camera is centered a decent amount above the player's head. Like, it's not quite at the player's head. It's probably, like, you know, a little bit above. Which makes sense, because in general, in platformers, you want to be able to see above you more than you want to be able to see below you. That's very typical. Some games kind of break the mold a bit. But for the most part, you're going to be designing enemies that are above the player more than you're going to be designing enemies that are below. And then, of course, enemies that are horizontally aligned with the player, like, there's no issues. Or vertically aligned, I should say. But yeah, we can see the behavior here. As we jump, the camera scales up, and then as we fall back down, it does the opposite. And if we did the opposite, if we fall down, it scrolls down, and if we jump back up, it scrolls back up. So some interesting camera display. Let's take a look at how it scrolls horizontally. I think it's gonna be... Oh, it's not actually just flat. Okay, it's a little different to Hollow Knight. I think the Hollow Knight method's a little better. So basically the camera, it's a much more... Actually, I wouldn't even say it's really a more simplistic approach. But in Super Metroid, how this camera's scrolling left and right on the screen is based off of when I press the left key, if the camera is not already as scrolled as far to the left as it can be, it will scroll to the left. So every time I tap the left key, we can see that the camera is scrolling more and more and more and more and more till eventually it hits a cap. Right, at this point, the camera's not scrolling any further. So if I tap left or hold left, the camera position doesn't change. And the exact same thing happens when you're going right. So it's effectively the same implementation that Hollow Knight has. The difference is that it doesn't do the full pan upon you turning around. Like in Hollow Knight, the moment that I turn around, the camera does the full pan immediately. And it's like a nice smooth pan, right? Like you can see here, like the panning is like very jagged. Or if I hold the button down, it's actually pretty smooth. But like, Hollow Knight has like a very like smooth panning function, which is not like that difficult to do, but you know, it just looks a bit cleaner, I think. So like, what are the advantages? Because, you know, there's going to be pros and cons to both of these. The first advantage I can see to the Super Metroid approach is, say that like I have an enemy that is, hold on, let me try and get this a little nicer. Okay, say I'm fighting an enemy that's over here, right? And I'm shooting at this enemy over here. If I want to like dodge an attack that requires me to turn around and like jump backwards a little bit, like say I do this, with Super Metroid's method of like not panning the camera all the way instantly, the enemy that I'm fighting against is probably going to be in view for a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more in view, right? If I'm making like a quick dodge to the left, I'll probably still be able to see it for a lot longer, or for a decent bit longer. As opposed to Hollow Knight, where as soon as I press left, the camera insta-pans, and it might take the enemy off screen like instantly. So that's something that is absolutely worth considering. I think that in general, it's probably not that big of a difference. I think I gravitate a little more towards the Hollow Knight style of panning the camera left and right. It just feels a little more fluid and smooth to me. Not that I think that the Super Metroid implementation is particularly poor or anything. I just doesn't feel quite as good. As far as the vertical panning goes, the Super Metroid solution is pretty alright. I know that there are definitely some camera quirks with Super Metroid, though. It's been a while, like I said, since I've like done any proper like running for it, but I do definitely remember there being instances where you'd like be doing some like quick platforming or something, and the camera just kind of is not exactly where you want it. Also, like, how washed am I at this game? Can I actually do wall jumps? Okay, like not too washed. Can't go back up here, right? Imagine. Okay. Yeah. Alright, I think we've seen about what we want to see from Super Metroid, so I'm probably going to close this out. Now, what are additional games we can take a look at? I've already kind of got a decent amount to start with, to start just doing some work for this. Let me pull the lo-fi back up. I think I'm going to take a look at one more game real quick, though. Another, like, critically acclaimed platformer. I'll give you maybe 30 seconds to take a guess while I load it up. If you recognize the soundtrack, you'll probably pick it up very quickly. This is another game that I've dabbled in speedrunning, although a long time ago, and far before what it's gotten to today. So I definitely have a very mediocre PB in this game for any percent. Though what can I say? I like my 2D platformers. If it'll actually load, here we go. There's gonna be some people that know it just from that wind noise alone. Let me check. I think it's a bit loud. Yeah, it is. Turn it down a bit. Turn down a bit before it blows our eardrums out. Alright, the game in question is, of course, Celeste. Another absolutely incredible platformer. Not a Metroidvania, this one, but we're not super concerned with it being a Metroidvania or not. There might be some considerations for Metroidvanias as opposed to like precision platformers like Celeste. The biggest one I can think of off the top of my head is the fact that, you know, in a Metroidvania, you're actually doing combat. In Celeste, there's not really combat. How do I return to map? I just want to get a random chapter open. It has been so long since I touched Celeste. Like, I have not opened this game in forever. I accidentally cancel out the file. Okay, I just want to pull up, trying to think of, like, what would be a good one. I can't even remember what the chapters are, I'll be honest. Just pull up chapter 2, see what it looks like. Alright, how does one play this game? Okay, X is dash. Now, what I'm realizing is a lot of Celeste... Oh, you can dash up, right? Yeah, okay. A lot of Celeste is static screen, so that's a big thing with precision platformers. A lot of the times, you just don't need to have any kind of screen scrolling, which is exactly what we're seeing here. So I want to get to a screen that does have some screen scrolling. I don't know how many of them. I know there are some, I'm pretty sure. There's like big vertical segments and stuff. But I'm realizing, yeah, like here, right? Okay. So we can use this room. Okay, so by default, I sit pretty well centered. This is not going to give us any X movement, but I can probably go to a different chapter for that. It looks very eased in Celeste. Interesting. So I jump. I think the camera in Celeste kind of lags behind the player a little bit and plays catch up until it reaches wherever the player is. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Probably is based on the player's speed somewhat, but it feels to me like it's kind of lagging behind. Mainly based on the fact that when the player stops, the camera takes some time to gradually ease in to the player's Y position. And I'm guessing it's probably... Oh, this looks like I can pan to the right here. No, it's just a separate screen. Let me go to map. I think chapter 4 has some horizontal scrolling. But it might be that Celeste doesn't do horizontal scrolling. It might just all be different screens. I feel like surely it's got some scrolling, right? Like this? Does this scroll or is it just... No, it doesn't. Is there really no horizontal scrolling in Celeste? Oh yeah, right here we can see it. Okay, this has got vertical and horizontal in this room. Okay. So it looks like the camera behaves more or less the same in the X direction and in the Y direction. It's just playing catch up. Yeah, when I turn around, you can see the camera barely even moves. It's just based off the player's position. Nothing to do with their facing direction or anything. So imagine the camera as like a detached object from the player, and when the player moves, the camera tries to move towards the player. So the camera's always trying to have the player in the center of the screen, and when the player moves, the camera is going just towards the player until the player is at the center. I believe is all that's really happening here. And so it's really fluid camera movement. And this is probably what I was saying with how there's going to be differences between a precision platformer versus a Metroidvania. In a precision platformer, you don't really care about, like there's no enemies. You don't have to be focused. The player doesn't need to be focused on something that is maybe towards the edge of the screen that they have to like pay attention to and like worry about dodging attacks and stuff, right? It's not really a concern, which means that there's not like much reason to like have the camera pan in front of the player to give them more viewing space. Celeste is like very intentionally designed around the fact that the amount of screen space you get around the player is enough to see what's coming and to react accordingly, right? Like they plan for that. And a big thing with that is that there's no random enemies that can potentially be sitting off screen that you need to keep track of, or worry about dodging the projectiles, or try and like aim an attack at them, right? That's just not a concern in Celeste. So that's probably why we don't see much of an emphasis on like really scaling the camera, which is interesting to note. I would assume that's kind of the rationale there. So I'm wondering if I want to. At this point, I'm like kind of debating: do I want to look at another Metroidvania then? We could pull up Ori actually. I have Ori. Yeah, let's pull up Ori. Why not? Ori is another game that I've speedrun, but it has been a long time. And yeah, I can barely remember. I haven't speedrun Ori since like, I don't know, since I was in uni a long while ago. Why is it opening Ori on my third monitor? Hello? I would like it to be here. Alright, it's gonna look crap because it's widescreen, and it looks like it doesn't have widescreen. So, oh, sorry. 2 seconds. Okay. Blast everyone's eardrums, but we're okay. I saved it. Let me look at the options before I start streaming this, and I just want to see if I can change it off widescreen. I can. The problem is it Okay, I just turned it off full screen, which is like probably fine. No, I don't want it to be 16 by 12. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like, I'll just have a windowed for now, just so I don't have to deal with it. And then let's, oh my god. I forgot that this is a KBM, it's a keyboard mouse game. It's such a weird move for Ori to be like a Metroidvania style game that is keyboard mouse instead of arrow keys. Like very bold choice they went with, but I honestly think Ori is like pretty damn incredible. I'm not gonna lie. So let's pull this up. Cool. I will, to this day, I will always claim that the ability bash in Ori 1, which I believe it's also in Ori 2, bash is the best movement ability, like movement mechanic, in any video game, period. Especially, well, definitely any 2D platformers at least. It is by far, like, the most satisfying one to use. I can't remember how to play this game, it's been so long. I'm gonna hop into the 100% file with the hopes that I can just go somewhere convenient. And I'm regretting it because I don't think I can from here. I mean, I probably could have just seen. These are all at Mount Horror. It's all useless to me then. They're all like endgame, like randomizer files. Okay. Well, let's see how the X scrolling. It plays catch up. Okay. So there's definitely a cap to like how far across I can be. And if I stop moving, it gradually slides back. So it's kind of, it's interesting because it's kind of a cross between, it's a bit of a cross between Celeste and Hollow Knight. In the sense that it does the catch-up stuff that Celeste has. But it does allow... No, I guess that this is just a lot closer to Celeste than Hollow Knight. Plays catch-up. And I'm assuming that the vertical stuff works exactly the same. I can't remember the mechanics in this game, I'm gonna be honest. What did I just do? Okay, I have big jump. Okay, I've used up all my stuff for big jump, I think. Oh, it's crazy that I cannot remember how to play this game in the slightest. Okay, I remembered how to do this at least. And if I fall, I go down. And then this is the floor, so it doesn't really... Okay. Why can I not, surely this jump is just free, right? I guess I'm meant to be going this way, I can't really remember. Wait, this is the escape sequence, no? Oh, I mean some like bug state, it seems. Yeah, okay. I don't know. This is probably some like randomizer file that is now no longer usable. Okay, couldn't really get a good look at the vertical movement, but I think it kind of just follows more or less the Celeste approach. I guess the big thing to note about Ori is that the player is very small on the screen. The player doesn't take up much screen real estate. Like, if I run what we currently have at the moment, right? My player is compared to the Ori that we just looked at, my player is quite big. It's probably about 4 times bigger than the Ori character. Now, there's definitely advantages to this. The main one being that you can see way more around the player, right? Like, by far, that's the biggest advantage. So you can see more stuff coming, which is nice. And in fact, like, this is probably already not quite... Like, I probably would want a bit more space than this already, I think. Like, even compared to Super Metroid, it's a little small, but I don't know, maybe it's alright. I'll probably leave the camera size as it is for the moment, and I can tweak it later. The thing is, a lot of your like level design is going to be pretty dependent on the camera view size, right? But okay, regardless, we've spent like a good half an hour at least going over a bunch of this stuff. We're going to do the initial work to start getting this camera stuff working. And then we will probably finish it off in the next daily, is my plan. I want to try and get as much of this working right now as I can. I think for the most part, I am liking the Hollow Knight implementation the most. So I think I'm going to start with more or less mimicking that and kind of play around with it, and I might tweak it a little bit. I'm not going to like try and get it to be an exact one-for-one match with the Hollow Knight camera, but it will be my starting point for sure. So what we are going to want to do is take the camera off the player, number one. Open prefab. So what I want to do is copy this and dump it down here, and then I want to go into the player prefab and I want to remove it. Prefabs player, you're no longer going to have a camera. Delete. Okay, and we come back out. So we still have a camera, it's just not on the player. What we are going to have, however, this camera is going to be, I guess I'll put it with the canvas. I may as well make the canvas in the camera, I guess. Let's call this player camera. And the first thing I want to try and do is get it to kind of just, well, let's just get it to follow the player first, right? Because now that I've unbound it from the player, the camera's not going to move. So we'll see here, the camera just doesn't move at all. So now I can do my crouching, and it doesn't like janky, move the camera around, but that's because the camera is completely fixed. So let's get the camera to move the player via code instead. So we're going to have a camera script, which requires us to pull up some scripts to begin with. So let's, do that. Boot up Visual Studio, because I didn't have it open already. Didn't know if I was going to use it, but I think we want to at least get a start on this stuff. Hey, look, it's an absolute list of variables. I'm sure that's really good at coding. Alright, I'm closing everything. We are going to add simply a camera script. I'll put it at the top level. I'm going to add a new class. And it is going to be camera.cs. I might even call it player camera. I think I will. Player camera. Okay, and I don't want to use the C# assembly. It's going to inherit from mono behavior. Let's get rid of all this crap until we need it later. If we reference the top of the player script, it inherits from mono behavior, and the namespace is... Oh, it just doesn't use a namespace. Wait, really? Okay, I guess it just doesn't use a namespace, sure. Could put some of these into their own namespaces, I guess, if I wanted to, but for now, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Okay, so the biggest thing with the camera class is we obviously need to have a reference to the player object, right? That's number one. So private game object player is equal to new. Actually, it's not. We just leave it like this. So in the private void. Oh, it's gonna be in the class when I'm done. Private void, I think it's just start. So in our start function, we're just gonna get a reference to the player. This is just void start. I guess it doesn't really matter. We're gonna say that the player objects, lowercase, player is equal to get component. Actually, it's not get component. It's find. I can really just view a script where we're actually using it. Let's go to like an enemy script. Branch bug. Do we get the player from here? No, I think the spooter definitely does. Player. Player is equal to game object of find object with tag. There you go. I can just copy this. Player equals player. Okay. I don't want to get that player script, I don't think. Do I guess I do, huh? Private player. I mean, the big thing about getting the script is we can reference their... we have more than just their transform position. Okay, so in our update scripts, private void fixed update. Actually, I think for camera, we want it to be on update, right? We want it to be on every rendered frame. Or maybe that's not true. Actually, I don't think it is, because it's gonna follow the player. Yeah, we'll do it in fixed update. Okay, so in fixed update, and we're just going to go very simple to start. We're going to say our transform dot position is going to equal player dot transform dot position. Not positino. We want position. So this is super simple. Yeah, very simple implementation that should just work. So what I'm thinking is I can make a game object and then also have a script. And then I can cite the game object. I'll just leave it as is. I'm sure it's fine. I can change it later if I really want to. Alright, so all we have to do now is take the camera object and we have to give it the camera script, obviously. Player camera, not player. I definitely don't want to give it that script. That would be not great. Player camera. Alright, and now if we run the game, hopefully it should just work. Looks like the answer is no, it's not working. We're going to go to the scene. And we'll note that the camera does appear to be in the right spot. So this player camera object, what are we viewing then? I'm very curious as to what camera we're viewing right now. Player camera, the transform position's in the right location. Interesting. Because it looks like it's in the right spot to me. So what's going on, huh? The canvas I don't really need to worry about. But it being on the player camera is definitely correct. That's where it should be. Why do you not work, huh? Background, solid color, which is what we see. Culling, mask, everything. Projection, orthographic, size, near, far. The position's in the right spot. So why am I just completely unable to see anything in the game? Scene. And yeah, I just cannot... what's going on here? And I'm definitely using this camera, and this camera has the position I'm expecting. Like, I don't even have another camera. This is the player's position as well, right? Yep. Yep. Culling mask, nothing. Culling mask, everything. Perspective, orthographic. What if I scale up the camera really big? So here's a test. We're gonna make this camera heckin' huge. Oh, the scale of the camera does literal nothing. I assume then I have to use the size. Made the size 200. I click game and I still can't see anything. Interesting. What do we think's going on? I think it might be the Z position. Player camera. Z position here is -6. And I'm wondering if that is the problem. So let's see what happens if I take this script off. Let's just remove it and click play. So we can see everything. And then what happens if I take the Z position and change it to 0? Yeah, okay, that's what it is. So the camera just has to be behind everything else Z-wise. That's just a thing. We're gonna give it -1. Because I don't think the Z number really... we'll give it... whatever, we'll give it like -100. Okay, you wouldn't think that this would be an issue with like using the Unity 2D package stuff, but apparently it is. So we just have a slight tweak, which is we want position.x, and this is not overridable. Whatever. New vector 3. We'll just manually make it. That's fine. .x, .y. It's stupid that I have to do this, but sure. And then this .z. Alright, alright. So now we can toss the player camera script back on, click play, should work. Okay, so it's gonna stay at -100, and now, hey look. And in fact, just by using this fixed update thing, we do actually get a little bit of easing, or at least the camera is slightly delayed behind the player. As we can see, it looks like it is probably one fixed update behind the player. Oh, maybe that's not true. Actually, I don't think it's true. I think it's just the fact that I have like a sliding stop on the player. You don't immediately stop. There's a little bit of friction. Okay, but yeah. Like we can already see it looks a lot nicer, I think. With this kind of solution. So now we're going to do some stuff based off of the player's values. So I want to do in every single fixed update. How much time have I got? I'm probably gonna go for another. Yeah, we got some time. I want to do the horizontal kind of leaning that I don't know what word to use for it, but the stuff that Hollow Knight does with the horizontal scrolling. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna store a boolean, private boolean, which is gonna be I guess I'm just gonna call it face, right? And then when we instantiate this script, we're gonna say that face right is equal to player dot face right. Right, straightforward. Now what I want to do is every fixed update, if face right does not equal player dot face right, then it means effectively that the player has, in the last fixed update, swapped directions. So what we want to do here then is start a coroutine, I believe. And we want to kill that. Yeah, okay, I know what I want to do. So we're going to have private float. I'm going to call it lean. I'm going to call it xlean as well. So xlean by default, I'm going to set to be 0. Yeah, not private. Xlean, we'll just give it 0 by default. If the player changes their facing direction, then we're going to start a coroutine. We're going to call start coroutine. And we're going to have to make one. So private I enumerator. And it's going to be, what are we calling it? Private I enumerator, and it's going to call camera xpan. We'll save for now. And then it's going to be yield return new wait for seconds. Actually, it's not going to do this at all. I'll figure out what I want to do here in a second. But we are going to immediately start camera xpan. And the big thing we want to pass in is player.face, right? Because this is the direction that the player is facing. So it's going to take a bool, which is called face right, I guess. I'll call it, I'll just call it right. I really want to call it face right because it's going to conflict with the one we've already got declared. Okay, so we got this. So we do that. The other thing we want to do is stop all coroutines. So stop all coroutines. So if we've already got one of these coroutines running, then stop them. So we'll stop any existing coroutines and we'll start the new one. Now what's going to happen is there's going to be a max lean, and I'm going to start by saying the max lean is going to be 1. So I'm going to have a serialized field, which is going to be private float max x lean. And then by default, I'm going to have this be equal to 1. And the x lean is what it is by default. Now this is going to be positive or negative. Is the max. Okay, so camera xpan bull, right? We want to start panning the camera. Can I just write return? Return yield. Oh, it's yield return, right? I have to do something? Let me quickly look up Unity Hub, not Unity Hub, Unity coroutines. Can I shouldn't, I mean, obviously I don't have to call a wait for seconds. Oh, I can yield return null. Okay, that's what I want. Right, so if I'm not actually doing anything, I can just do this. And all we're gonna do is start a coroutine that just says while. While xleen is less than, no, it's kind of annoying. Let me just think of how I want to do it. Should never be greater, right? I can probably do less than. While xleen is less than max xleen. And it's gonna be xleen, it's gonna be the absolute. So it's gonna be math.abs, math right? While the absolute value for xleen is less than max xleen, then we're going to have xleen plus equals, and then this is what we want our panning. So I'm going to have another serialized field, private float xleen pan. Let's just say xpan speed. And I'm going to start by having this be, it's going to be pretty low. So this is going to get run 50 times a second. So if I'm facing right and I turn to the left, I need it to move 2 whole units, which would be 2 whole units. Let's say it takes 1 full second for the camera to pan. 2 divided by 50, quick math. It's 2 over 51 over 25, which is 0.25th. Is 0.04, right? This times 25 is 1. And then this times 50 is 2. Is that math? I believe so. Yeah, okay, we've done math. All right, lovely. So xleen is going to plus equal xpan speed multiplied by right. If it's right, it's multiplied by 1, else it's -1. Okay, just spaced it for me, sure. So we're either gonna add pan speed or we're gonna add negative pan speed. I should probably just set this as a value rather than doing this calc every single time we run this while loop iteration. So let's just have var sign is equal to this. And then we can just use sign here. All right, if we're facing right, we're going to push ourselves in the right direction. If we're facing left, we're going to push ourselves in the left direction. I think this is all we're doing. Once we hit the max xleen, we stop. The last thing I think I have to do is... This is going to stop once it hits the max. But I need to push it back in the other direction. Is the other thing. So I think the very first thing I do is push the lean. I could have it do while instead. The do while I think is better. How do I do a do while loop? God, it's been a while. It's do this and then what? While this. Okay. Hey, oh my god, it's almost like I learned something in university. Alright, and the big difference here is we're going to immediately push the camera so that it goes so that it doesn't instantly meet this condition, because I'm taking the shortcut where I take the absolute. Which is a bit of a... I mean, I should probably just have 2 iterations of this function, honestly. But I think this will work. Okay, and now the last thing we need to do is it's going to be transform.position.x plus xlean on the camera here. And that's the last thing. And hopefully this will work. And the last thing we want to do is we want to like update this panning function so that it pans, instead of panning linearly, it pans like on a curve. That'd be like the last thing to like actually make it really polished, but that's kind of a pain in the ass. So I'm pressing right. So we'll see nothing crazy here because by default, I believe the player is facing right. If I press left, it pans left. It's clearly not working how I want it to. All right, when I press left, all right, very interesting. So by default, xlean is equal to 0. And then it did a huge jump when I pressed left. Let me quickly double check. Max xlean 1, expand speed 0.04. While the absolute value of xlean is less than max xlean, move the lean. And then I'm gonna quickly console.log it as well. Just take a look. So theoretically, this should not be able to shouldn't be able to go beyond the xlean value, although that absolutely looked like what was happening just then. Let's give it a look. Yeah, it's going beyond. Maybe this mathf.abs is not working then. Let me quickly debug this. I won't debug the top one. Absolute, I'm pretty sure just returns the positive value, right? I'm not crazy. Yep. Alright, maybe this is just not working then. Because max xlean is 1, as defined here. So if it hits 8, it should stop. Right? I guess the other thing is it could be continually calling it. I didn't actually consider that. Oh, yeah, of course it is. Okay, I figured it out. It's actually just calling this coroutine like a million times over. I need to have face right is equal to player.face right. That's all I was missing. Because I'm dumb as shit. Okay, let's try this. Okay, and now what I'm realizing is that, of course, the coroutine is not running on a fixed update. Obviously. This just runs completely separate. So I can wait for seconds, the same as the other one does. Have coroutine. Let's see what I see. Have coroutine run in time with fixed update. Coroutines and physics time steps. Unity discussions. Look at this. Click look. Fixed updates runs at a fixed rate, 50 FPS. So when game is e.g. 25 FPS, it's called twice. But when you'll return, you wait for fixed update. Oh yeah, there is just a thing for it. Okay. We're good. Add it and then yield return. New wait for. I forgot there is just literally a function for this, which will hopefully resolve our issues. Fingers crossed. I'm cautiously optimistic that this is going to do what we want it to do. So rather than instantly snapping to the position we want it at, it's now going to slide. And we can see it's too slow. It's way too slow here. All this means is the pan speed is way too low. I need to set it. I need to set to like... we'll make it at least 5 times faster and see how that looks. Okay, not bad. I think the max lean is a little too high. I'm going to set like 0.7. And I might reduce the pan speed a little bit. I'll set it to 1.15. So all we do now is we just tweak with these values until we get to a spot that we're like reasonably happy with. Even this already is decent. It looks like it's way further to the right than to the left, though. Am I crazy? I'm not crazy, right? Hold on. Camera's here. Okay. If I tap left. Okay, I mean, I should just look at the actual camera position. So camera position right now, X 29.37, and player is at 30.12. Yeah, that definitely seems wrong as hell. That's not a full unit. Oh, of course it's not a full unit because I reduced it, I made it 0.7 instead. Okay, it's about 0.7. And then if I go back the other way, and we take a look, 31.1 for the camera, and the player's at 30.4. Yeah, okay. I don't know, I guess it looks to me, I don't know why. No, I guess I'm just tripping. I think it might just be the fact that the Unity editor is a little off center. Okay, feels very weird though. Oh, it feels super weird when I'm going back and forth, but I think it might just be again due to the fact that we're doing like a linear movement. Whereas it probably needs to be scaled to some extent. Like I need to have it smooth a little bit in and out. Yeah, I think that's really all the issue is. So we can like polish it a little bit, but I already like it's already like you get way more, well not way more vision, but It looks a bit nicer, I think. Yeah, it's a little jank when you're moving, like, if I'm moving left and right a bunch like this, right? Like, that doesn't look fantastic. I think I need to pull up Hollow Knight and give it a little more of a comparison and see. But yeah, it definitely looks a little strange. Pew. Oh, these spiders are missing hitboxes. You'll love to see it. Donk. Okay, I'll work on this camera. I'll work on this camera panning. The next thing would be the vertical panning as well, and that I'm really gonna need easing on. I think for the vertical especially, it's gonna look really, really jarring if I don't have good easing on it. So that's probably what we'll work on next session. We'll get the... Oh, another thing is like setting bounding boxes for the camera where it locks the how far it can pan in an X or Y direction. That's another big one. So we'll take a look at those. Let me delete wherever these debugs are. I've got some random debugs lying around that I'm just gonna quickly clean. I think that's like everything. Yeah, okay. Alright, but you know, not a bad start. Not a bad start to the camera stuff at all. And I think if you're... It's going to be a better video in terms of just like watching it on YouTube, if anyone's giving it a look. Because I kind of will go over it. It's a bit more analysis based. So hopefully, if anyone did give it a watch, you found it a little bit interesting. But I think we're going to stop here for tonight. So thanks everyone who stopped by for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the stream, the daily. I will doubtfully, I don't think I'm going to be back on tomorrow, but it will most likely the following night. At this stage. Yeah, it won't be one tomorrow. It will be one the day after. So we'll be going over some more camera stuff then. Yeah, tune in to hopefully see most of that resolved. I'm sure there'll always be more polishing to do, but we'll get it set up to a pretty decent state, I think, next time. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. Catch you around.